Now let's look at the second instruction.
Second instruction. We asked ourselves why we were angry. Period. Stop. Don't go no further. We come to the second column, and beside each name we list the cause of that resentment. That is all very vivid in our minds too. We all remembered what they did to us. If we didn't remember what they did to us, we wouldn't have remembered their name. Yeah, we all got that information. And just write it down from top to bottom. And you know, this is real simple to do. It's just putting it down. We got the information in our minds, but we cannot analyze it until we get it down in black and white and see it. If we could have analyzed it in our minds, we wouldn't have had this problem. We want to get it down in black and white, or we can go through it and get to the truth of it.
As we put down the reasons for this, working from top to bottom, I think as we finish up that list, the second column, we're probably going to begin to realize, you know, it's really not them that I'm upset with. It's what they've done that's got me upset. Right. It's not so much the people or the institutions, it's what they do that upsets me. Let's look, for instance, here on Bill's example. He's mad at Mr. Brown because of his attention to my wife, told my wife and my mistress Brown might get my job at the office. I don't blame him. I'd be getting a little upset with Brown probably too. He's mad at Mrs. Jones. She's a nut. She snubbed me. She committed her husband for drinking. He's my friend. Hell, she had his best drinking buddy put in the insane asylum. Besides that, she's a gossip. He's mad at the employer. Unreasonable, unjust, and overbearing. He probably said, Bill, where were you all day Monday anyhow? He also threatens to fire me for drinking and padding my expense account. Now that's unreasonable as hell. He's mad at the wife. She misunderstands and nags, and she likes old Brown, and she wants the house put in her name. Now you tie together liking Brown, wanting the house put in her name, it's about time to start getting a little upset here. As we finish that column, we realize, you know, I could take Mr. Brown out of here and put Mr. Green in. And I'd be just as upset with Green as I would Brown if he did the same thing. I can take my wife out of here and put my mistress in, and I'll be just as upset with her. I begin to realize in column 2, it's really not the people. It's what they've done that's got me upset. That's going to be very valuable for me to know a little bit later on. Let's look at the third instruction.
Okay. In most cases, it was found that our self-esteem, our pocketbook, our ambitions, our personal relationships, including sex, were hurt or threatened, so we were burned up. Now he repeats this over again. On our grudge list, and this is the first column, we set opposite each names our injuries. This is the second column, the cause. Then he says, was it our self-esteem, this is a social instinct, our security, our ambition, our personal relationship, our sex relation which has been interfered with? You cannot have a resentment unless one of your basic instincts have been threatened. What did they hurt? Now we're getting closer to what we want to work on. We're going to really getting closer now. We're getting closer to the problem. We had to start with the name and the cause to get to this point. Which part of self was involved? Which part of self was threatened, hurt, or endangered? Was it one of our social instincts? Was it our security instincts? Was it our sex instinct? Or was it one of our ambitions in one of these three areas?
About top to bottom.
Again, we're going to do this from top to bottom. And here we suggest, begin right here at the top of this sheet. Look at the self-esteem column. Follow it all the way down. And if the cause affects the self-esteem, put a little check beside that one. Do the self-esteem column all the way down. Go back to the top of the sheet, do the personal relationship column from top to bottom, bring it all the way down, see if the causes affected that one. Then come to the material security column, work it all the way down, top to bottom. Then emotional security, all the way down from top to bottom, acceptable sex, hidden sex, and then work the ambitions from top to bottom. When we get through, we're going to have a series of check marks across self. Sometimes we're going to find self-esteem is affected a lot on some of these things. Sometimes we will end up with looking a lot of maybe material security might be a problem with us. Maybe sometime it will be sex and some of our ambitions. But in most cases we're going to find out it will vary. But we begin to see a pattern. We begin to see which part of self that we are very sensitive about. What is our pattern? We're getting down some real basic information that we can work on in this third column.
It's probably going to be a combination of all three basic instincts. But for most of us, we'll begin to see certain ones beginning to predominate in our lives. We'll begin to see, hey, self-esteem really is a problem. Or sex really is a problem. Or security really is the problem. And we'll begin to see which ones really dominate us. As we finish the third column, I think we're going to realize something that is very valuable to us. First, we're going to realize it's not the people that we're mad at. We're going to realize it's really not even what they did that we're mad at. It was our reaction to what they did based on self, which creates this anger and this resentment. I've had trouble with anger all my life, and I've always said and done things with anger that I was sorry about later on, try not to do them, turn right around, repeat it over and over. I never could get a handle on anger because I didn't know where anger came from. I thought it just flitted through your mind. There was nothing you could do about it, period. But today I see that anger comes from a threat to one of my own three basic instincts alive. It's really not what they do. It's really not them. It's how I react to it based upon my own basic instincts alive. And thank God that's true. Because I can't do nothing, I can do nothing about them. I can do nothing about what they can do. But I might be able to do something about my reaction to it if I understand what's going on with me. And today I know that's 100% true. My wife, Barbara, God bless her, I just love her to pieces. She's a real black belt Al-Anon. She's got about 22 years in Al-Anon, really working the program. But once in a great while, Barbara gets a little out of kilter in herself also. And sometimes she'll do and say things to me that she probably shouldn't have done, and it hurts my feelings. Now, I find that if I'm right with God and myself is under control, that doesn't bother me at all. I'm able to say, well, the poor old thing, she's just sick, that's the way they are, and it'll just slip right. But now 2 weeks from now, she'll do the same thing, say the same thing, and I'm not right with God, and I just blow my stack, and I go through the roof, and I romp, and I stomp, and I raise hell. It's the same lady, the same everything, except I reacted differently. Today I know it's not them. It's not what they do, but it's my reaction based on my own basic instincts of life. I never knew that before. I'm going to need that. I'm going to use that in just a few minutes. We filled out 3 sheets, or 3 columns. We put down the name and realized how many people we're really mad at. We put down the cause and realized it wasn't them, it's what they did. We put down what part of self is affected, and we realized it's not what they did, it's how we reacted to it based on our own basic instincts of life. Now let's take this information from these 3 sheets and let's do something with it. Joe?
Okay. Again, in the bill, in the third column, he had Mr. Browning's attention to my wife. Well, that affected his sex relations at home. And then he said self-esteem. He was worrying about Brown messing with his wife. And he said, what are people going to think about me if Brown's messing with my wife? Told my wife about my mistress. Now, oh man, that's bad. That messed up his sex relations at home. And then after his wife found out about his mistress, she went over there and bawled out the mistress. Now the mistress didn't cut him off over there. He ain't got no sex relation over there. And it hurts his self-esteem. What other people are going to find out and say when they find out about me and my wife and my mistress? After all, you know, I teach Sunday school every Sunday. And I carry the Boy Scouts, and I'm one of the leading people in the community. And now all this story done got out about my mistress and my wife. And you know, that ruins your self-esteem. If you don't believe that, ask Jimmy Baker about that. He'll tell you. Okay, so we can see how all these things are threatened and involved and worked up in this. Now we can go down and see. We can kind of read this thing across and begin to get a picture of this resentment. So we went back through our lives. Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. When we finished, we considered it carefully. The first thing apparent was the world and its people are often quite wrong. Now that, to conclude that others are wrong as far as we ever got. And that's usually what we did with those resentments. Usually the outcome was people continue to harm us, continue to wrong us, and we stayed sore. Sometimes it was remorse, then we were sore at ourselves. But the more we fought and tried to have our own way, the worse matters got. As in war, the victor only seemed to win. A moment of triumph, a short-lived. Sometimes we get even with these people. In most cases, we don't. It is plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to futility and unhappiness. To the precise extent that we permit these, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile.
I read that and I stopped. And I tried to look back in my life to see how much time I've squandered in resentments. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I know about me. And when I've got a good resentment going, I'm pretty well paralyzed from doing anything worthwhile. About all I want to do is sit there and think about what those suckers have done to me and what I'm going to do to them and blah-de-blah-de-blah-de-blah. Now, when I was drinking, one of my favorite things was get up early in the morning, have a drink of whiskey and a cup of coffee, and turn on my resentment replay machine and replay what she said yesterday and what he did last week and what they did last month and what somebody else did last year and what somebody else did 5 years ago and 10 and 15 and 20 and 30 and 40, as far back as I could remember. And I could spend an hour doing that, and I just loved to do it. And then when that tape ran out, I'd have another drink of whiskey, another cup of coffee, and I would turn on my get even machine. Now, by God, the next time she says that, I'm going to say this, and they're not going to do me that way. I can spend another hour doing that, and I just loved it. Now, to the best of my ability, I don't see whether it ever did me any good at all. It didn't make me any money. Didn't make me feel better, only made me feel worse. Never straightened up a relationship with another human being, only made them worse. And I actually believe that time has been absolute wasted time. Now, as a human being, I've only got so many hours on the face of the earth. For the first time in my life, I'm sober, and I feel good at the same time. And I love this way of feeling. And I'll be damned if I'm going to waste any of what short time I've got left in resenting people and being mad at people and letting that stuff churn round and around and around in my head. That is absolute wasted time. That's a bad deal for one of us. But that's not the worst thing. Here's the worst thing. But with the alcoholic whose hope is the maintenance and growth of a spiritual experience, this business of resentment is infinitely grave. We found that it is fatal. For when harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the Spirit. The insanity of alcohol returns, and we drink again. With us, to drink is to die. A resentment very effectively blocks God out of my life. And with God blocked out, I don't feel good. And my mind starts searching for that sense of ease and comfort. I begin to think about drinking. The next thing you know, I become insane. I think I can drink. And I drink. And with people like me, to drink is to die. If we were to live, we had to be free of anger. The grouch and the brainstorm were not for us. They may be the dubious luxury of normal men, but for alcoholics these things are poison. You know, the only question in my mind today about a resentment, it's not whether it's justified or unjustified. The only question in my mind today about a resentment is what's it going to do to me? And if it's going to cause me to drink, hell, I've got to get rid of it. Whether it's right or wrong is beside the point. We turn back to the list. See, this is why you've got to have a written inventory. If you had a mental inventory, that list would already have been gone. But since we've got it written down, now we're going to go back and look at it again. And this time, we're going to look at it from an entirely different angle. This list regarding the past, resentment-wise, is going to be the key to my future life. And I'm going to look at it now from an entirely different angle. Used to, I looked at it to see what they did to me. Now I'm looking at it to see what that resentment does to me. And we begin to see that the world and its people really dominated us. In that state, the wrongdoing of others, fancied or real, had power to actually kill. And Joe said it a while ago. When I read that, I stopped and I thought, my God, how stupid can you be? All my life, I've been proud of the fact that I stand on my own 2 feet. I make my own decisions. I run my own show. Nobody tells me what to do. When I read that statement, I suddenly realized that other people have been telling me what to do throughout my entire lifetime through my resentment toward them. When I'm resenting them, they are controlling my thinking. And if they're controlling my thinking, you can bet your boots they're controlling my decisions and my actions, and they've got my entire life in their hands. And I always thought I ran the show. Hell, today I realize I never did run it. They've always run it. And then I said, oh, Jesus. Some of these people have been dead and buried in the graveyard for 25 and 30 years. And they've been reaching out from the grave, and they've had me but a yang-yang as far back as I can remember. And when I realized that, I said, to hell with them. I'm not going to let them live in my head rent-free anymore. I want God to control my thinking. And if other people do it, dead or alive, then God can't. And it's just that simple. Now, how can we escape from that? We saw that these resentments must be mastered, but how? We could not wish them away any more than alcohol. Well, this was our course. We realized that the people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick, and they are. Everybody has self-will. Everybody gets sick in self. Though we did not like their symptoms and the way these disturbed us, like ourselves, we're sick too. We asked God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. When a person offended, we said to ourselves, this is a sick man, how can I be helpful to him? God save me from being angry, thy will be done. You know what this thing's saying? It's saying I might have to pray for some of them damn people. Oh, that's hard for an alcoholic to do. Oh, that's difficult. But if I can see where that resentment is blocking me off from God, and if I can see where it's going to get me drunk, then I've got one or two choices. Either pray for the suckers or end up drunk over them. And I'm not going to let them get me drunk anymore. They've done that long enough.